Have you ever had a time when you just had to get away from it all? Hit the road, visit new places, see different terrain, get a full 8 hours of sleep each night?
Well, a few weeks ago, we did just that. Here's our story.
We're also going to touch a little bit on trusting strangers on the internet regarding their routes, campsites, and what their idea is of having a relaxed overland trip. Our first day was mostly just blasting across Missouri on state highways.
We're not going to bore you with that.
Instead, we're going to start off early in the morning of our second day. A lot of states in the middle of the country don't get recognized as being particularly exciting. And honestly, they're not.
But we firmly believe there's beauty to be found everywhere if you just look for it. Kansas is one of those states.
We followed a small portion of the Kansas Adventure Trail. This is a route someone, or a group of someones, came up with, then graciously shared with the rest of us. It basically just travels down low-maintenance gravel roads through the state's rich farmland.
We were really surprised when we came across this. Now it's a museum, but in its day, this behemoth piece of machinery dug massive amounts out of the coal mining operation here.
There's also many other pieces of equipment you can actually get into.
By early afternoon, we entered Oklahoma.
Here, we followed a portion of another route we found online, the Greene County, Oklahoma Adventure Tour. It's basically a long loop around the Grand Lake of the Cherokees. Unfortunately, our short time only allowed us to do the section of the eastern half. In the state of Oklahoma, there isn't much public land, so dispersed camping isn't available. Now, there are some state parks and private campgrounds, but we prefer a more private, quiet places to camp. Before leaving home, I posted a question about places to camp on this route's Facebook group page. Someone got back to me with their GPS coordinates of all kinds of places to camp along this route.
We're always at least a little skeptical about information like this.
So we decided to check out a couple of these places that were on our way to see if they were legal places to camp.
The two that we looked at were definitely not.
One was on a gravel bar next to an abandoned bridge across the river. Now, in some states, and I don't know if that's the case in Oklahoma, it is legal to camp below the high water mark on a gravel bar. But this is mostly aimed towards people going down the river in canoes or a boat. The way that you had to get a vehicle to this particular gravel bar crossed plainly marked private property, and the farm that owned the property was right in view. Then the second one we looked at was this small piece of grass somebody mowed and put their camper on it. Clearly not a public campground.
So the lesson learned here, always verify and use good judgment when trusting information like this.
By this time, it was getting late, so we decided to just get a motel room across the state line in Missouri.
Is spending the night in a motel room considered overlanding? Let us know your opinion in the comments below.
Early the next morning, we found ourselves in the Missouri Ozark Mountains. We're following yet another route that someone came up with and shared online. Now, this is a good lesson in the differences people have in the definition of overlanding.
We believe there's a clear separation between overlanding and off-roading.
To us, overlanding is adventure traveling. Great scenery, old towns, local foods, and meeting unique people. Getting to these sometimes hard to reach places often takes us down rather rough roads. Rock ledges, sand, mud, ruts. But our most important goal is to not break anything. We don't want to have to stop and change out parts, go to a parts store. Hopefully they'll have the parts, and spend a lot of time fixing this thing, or worse yet, having the trailer at home.
Been there, done that.
Off-roading, and we've done plenty of it over the years, is where we push our rigs to their limits. Huge ledges, deep mud, ruts that are deeper than our tires can handle.
Boulders.
Yes, and that often results in breaking something.
This was definitely not intended to be an off-road trip.
The Ozarks have always been one of our favorite places in the Midwest to spend time. There are tons of back roads and unmaintained trails to explore. Unfortunately, due to it becoming a well-known popular route, overuse and abuse have made some of these Forest Service roads very rutted and eroded. Multiple bypasses have been created, contributing even more to the erosion problem. Most roads where we've driven through in the past are now closed off for restoration. That usually means they're closed for good.
We still had a fun and relaxing time, and we found a great dispersed campsite for the night.
The next morning, we continued down this Ozark route, occasionally having to reroute ourselves to avoid getting stuck or damaged. Well, unfortunately, we're done. This is what we're up against. We have ledges that are 2 feet tall. There is a bypass around, but it was made by ATVs side-by-side, so they're sized for side-by-side, and they're not much better than this. We're all alone. We don't know what's ahead of us. We do know what's behind us. So, hate to do it, but we're gonna turn around and go back the way we came. As we got to the eastern edge of the Ozarks, we headed into Missouri and the Mark Twain National Forest.
We don't normally like to stay in campgrounds, but we found one that was nearly empty, and we had a site right along the river.
It was a good call. Turned out to be a perfectly quiet evening.
The next day, we headed further east to Kentucky's land between the lakes.
This is another spot that we really enjoy exploring.
It's a nice place, easy trails, but it can be a little muddy.
We were very fortunate that our favorite dispersed campsite was available to us for the evening.
Right on the lake, so we could watch the barges and fishing boats pass by.
The next morning, we took the ferry across the Ohio River into Illinois. This is another state that usually isn't thought of as an overlanding state, and it isn't really, but it does have some cool back roads if you're willing to look for them.
We were planning to get a campsite at one of the many state parks along the Illinois River, but the weather was looking really bad that night, so we drove the extra miles home.
It was a short trip, but just what we needed to revive ourselves. Our goal was to have a relaxing, easy trip, and we did just that.
As you saw, we didn't put a lot of effort into the filming, just some GoPro and phone shots and a few pictures. We hope you still enjoyed it.
And if you did, please hit that like button, and we hope you consider subscribing to our channel. Thanks for watching.